Good day, folks. Karl Kjarsgaard of Halifax 57 Rescue, calling you from Nanton, Alberta, home of the Bomber Command Museum of Canada, the national memorial to our 10,500 plus young Canadians killed in combat in bombers. And I'm here today to share with you, COVID be darned, the adventure of the Halifax bomber recovery off the coast of Sweden just this last August. And I want to tell you, it was a heck of an adventure. And thanks to the goodness and the generosity and the energy of all of our friends, Swedish Coast and Sea Center, River Thames Association, and all of our supporters, we had the ultimate diving adventure and saving our Royal Canadian Air Force history. And so, as we start into me giving you the full story for the first time since August, I needed you folks to understand something about what the Halifax means to Canada. And now, I've got lots of good reasons why the Halifax is such a historic airplane. But you know what? There's a lot of debate out there amongst my family and friends about, I don't know about Karl, and the more direct ones, they're asking this question: Karl, what's wrong with you? And the debate still rages, but I need you to understand what the Halifax means to Canada. And it is a very huge symbol of the honor, excellence, and sacrifice of our bomber boys. So I've got to give you a History 101 on the Halifax. And I need you to read this stat and see that 71% of all RCAF bombing missions in Canadian squadrons, not the British squadrons, was flown in the Halifax bomber aircraft. Now, 20% of Canadian combat was flown on Lancasters and 9% on Wellingtons from the start of the war to the end of the war. But most of you are thinking the Canadians flew the Lancaster 100% of the time in their Canadian squadrons. It's not true. And so if 7 out of every 10 bombing missions flown by Canadians in Canadian squadrons was flown in the Halifax, then this is the eye popper for you. This is our National Memorial Wall in Nanton, Alberta, out front door of the Bomber Command Museum. And on this wall and on the other side is 10,500 plus names of Canadian lads, average age 22, who paid the ultimate sacrifice for your freedom. Freedom is not free. Somebody paid for you. But think of this. The majority of those 10,500 plus names on that National Memorial Wall were flying in the Halifax when they paid for you. So, if you had a running Lancaster at your National Memorial Museum, what is missing that should be sitting beside it based on the significance of what I've just told you? And that's why Halifax 57 Rescue has spent over 20 years recovering Halifax aircraft for Canada and for the aviation world. We've got followers from all over the world, but our number one priority is to bring Halifaxes back to Canada. Some swords of freedom are made from aluminum. And now let us get into the worldwide search for all things Halifax. And I wanted to show you one of our big breaks within the last 10 years of finding a Halifax for Nanton, Alberta. And when I was researching a Malta Spitfire pilot that flew in combat, he was a Canadian, and I went to Malta and I met the museum people there that have the memorial to the Royal Air Force and RCAF pilots that defended Malta. The curator of the museum said, "Karl, you're looking for all kinds of Halifax parts for your next project." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, you know that the Hastings transport made by the same company as the Halifax, they used a Halifax wing to make their Hastings transport." And he said there are 2 Hastings transports cut up in a scrapyard down the road here. And I said, "We got to go check this out." So we went down there. I met the owner. He spoke only Maltese, not English. So the curator, Ray, he translated for me, and he said, "This guy's a Canadian. He's here researching World War II, and he heard that you had a Hastings transport cut up here and the scrapyard." And Ray had told me the owner would turn us away. He just didn't want to be bothered. But the owner looked at my jacket, and on my lapel was a Canadian maple leaf. And he turned to Ray and he said, "Is this guy from Canada?" And Ray said, "Yes, he's here doing some research." And he pointed to me and he said, "He can come in." And they remembered the Canadian pilots like Buzz Burling that defended Malta in World War II. So serendipitous, I guess. But so we recovered all of this wing and landing gear and engines, and we brought it back to Canada. And lo and behold, Scott Knox, a design engineer in Ottawa, who I had worked with on a previous Halifax recovery, he said, "Karl, I can rebuild this wing for you. I can start rebuilding a Halifax. You just keep giving me more and more Halifax parts, and my company will rebuild it." So we started with Knox Tech. And Knox Tech has done a beautiful job on that center section that you saw me standing on top of. And they're just about ready to do the final putting together of the center section, which is the foundation of a Halifax. And you can see the beautiful work they've done. And so Knox Tech is working away in Ottawa, and as they build the sections up, they will send them out to Bomber Command Museum to be assembled into our Halifax. And I wanted to point out something to you. We're going gangbusters with Knox Tech. They're doing great work, and they decided that as the parts come in, they're running out of space. So lo and behold, here we are. I call it Fort Knox, but it's the brand new rebuild hangar at the Arnprior Airport, west of Ottawa. And you can see a beautiful new building and just the beginnings of the final finishing touches inside. And I'll be able to show you images in the next few weeks of all the Halifax parts there and all the good work they're doing. But we now have a brand new rebuild shop. And meanwhile, back at the ranch in Nanton, Alberta, the Bomber Command Museum of Canada, we've been collecting all the very special items required for a Halifax bomber. As you can see, the propellers, On the left, the domes, the barrel halves, the propeller blades, the bearings, all of the good hardware you need to build giant three-bladed propellers for a Halifax. We've got them. And thank goodness we found a great supply of brand new propeller parts. Also on the right, there is your Bristol Hercules engine, right smack dab in the middle of a repair. Our number one engine, of which we have 7 engines. Our number one engine, we blew the supercharger on the engine. So yours truly and a couple other guys, we split the engine, took the old supercharger out. You can see down below the baseball hat, the supercharger laying on just beside the engine. And we inserted that into the engine, put her back together, and she's running great. So we're doing good work there. But the key to this salvage, our whole story, comes from the fact of that we now have a beautiful salvage tugboat, and I want to show you this. Here she is, the River Thames coming to the rescue. So here we are on the River Thames, and we're having our first full briefing of the diving team. And you can see Gustav is closest to us in the gray and black T-shirt. And we're all listening intently as Jan Christensen gives us a briefing. Jan is over by the green map in the corner. And he is telling us locations of special parts and all of the signposts and grid checkpoints and everything for the Halifax, because remember, after 78 years, a lot of the Halifax is covered with sand. So we had all our briefings, we all had our jobs to do, and so here we are headed out on the River Thames.
Not very much though. I mean, ship safety first.
So here we are. I wanted to show you this master map that Jan Christensen has constructed. And can you see the white arrow there? There's the tiny symbol of the scuba diver to scale, showing the fairly large Halifax site. And as you can see, the tops of the Halifax are sticking out of the sand. A lot of sand, 78 years of sand shifting around the Halifax. And so we had that as a guide. We had our grid, we had our checkpoints. And thanks to Jan building this is actually a giant mosaic photograph of 4,000 photos of the Halifax site that Jan spliced together to make this beautiful map. And so that was a godsend to have that, because we needed to know where everything was so we could decide on our strategy for recovery. And now of course, you're wondering about these special tools that a person would have for this underwater recovery. And if I can start in the upper left, we've got the very powerful diesel water pump, and we nicknamed her Jackie. And you can see just below the baseball hat, there's a picture of Jackie. She's a lady from wartime, and she is the mom of Ian Hinks, who is a great supporter of our Halifax project. And Ian said, Karl, I'd love to buy the giant water pump from you for the use of the recovery of the Halifax. And could you do me a favor? Could you name it after my mom, Jackie? So we had the writing of the name of Jackie, and I said to Ian, send me a photograph of Jackie and I'll put it on the pump, and then she can help us as we uncover the Halifax. Now, Jackie is pumping 50 gallons a minute down to the divers. And do you see the down below on the left, the chrome nozzle, which is your underwater vacuum? And we called it SUE, for sand underwater excavation. So SUE is what moves the sand, sucks it up like a Hoover machine, and takes the sand away so we can recover the parts. And behind the diver there, that dark object is a part of the Halifax flaps. So Jackie and Sue are working together. Then in the upper right, we've got a high pressure washer, like just almost like a car washer, but it works underwater. It pumps down from the surface, from the tug deck, and provides us with the nozzles to cut excess sand and mud off of the Halifax airframe so that each piece is as light as it could be for lifting and recovering. And finally, every expedition, down in the lower right, every expedition's got to have a hunting dog. So here we are. Here is Rick, the ROV, remote operated vehicle. And, it's got your little thruster motors. It's got headlights. It's got a camera. It's got a remote control TV, so you can project on a screen inside the tug what Rick is seeing. And those were our main tools for our expedition. And we'd love to have more of these tools. And so we'll be planning for next summer when we go out again in the year 2022. That's a big announcement that's just come out. And with all these special tools, we started into the Halifax. And the first thing that we found was this great example of preservation in the Baltic Sea. You can see the bomb bay door from the belly of the Halifax laying in the sand, partly submerged under the sand, but all there for us to recover. And we recovered that door, brought it up, put it in a temporary freshwater bath so that it wouldn't get dry or corrode anymore. And what was really eye-popping for us was when we turned the door over, the aluminum skin on the door was good. But when we turned the door over, the wood paneling, which was installed on the bomb bay door, was still intact after 78 years in the Baltic Sea. And you can see the brown wood by the baseball hat. And so this to us was a great indication, very heartening for, yes, the airframe can survive 78 years, and yes, we can use it in our restoration. And so we started plotting out all the items, what we wanted to recover right away. The bomb bay door was put in fresh water right away. We continued on, and through bad weather and good weather and big waves and small waves, and we just kept going. And the next thing that we found was sticking out of the sand was the tail wheel tire, tail wheel fork, and oleo. The entire unit was 6 feet long, and it was partly sticking out of the sand. And you can see on the left the close-up of the alloy wheel with the tire there, black tire behind. And then there it is sitting on the tugboat deck. And you're looking at that and saying, doesn't look too good. But let me tell you, folks, this was another eye popper, is all of those mussels, barnacles, and marine crust that was sticking to that unit. We decided that we got to try and clean it off and make it as good as we could before we put it in the freshwater bath. So I just want to show you, after 78 years, the type of treasure that we're finding. And all of these ones are showed here here's Gustav working with the tail wheel unit, and I've slowed it down into slow motion so you can see 78 years of marine crust coming off from the jet blast. And what is really interesting is that when the crust blew off, underneath was a complete serviceable tail wheel unit, and there was hardly any corrosion on it. You can see as I move in closer that this is a restorable tail wheel unit for a Halifax bomber. And this was a revelation to us and so encouraging. And here we are with the complete conserved tail wheel unit all cleaned up. Quite a good unit, a very good condition. Now it's going into freshwater pool so that it can be saved and not get any further corrosion on it. And it will be packaged up and shipped to Canada. One of the big finds was we found the intermediate wing spars, and the fittings on the spars were still good. And so we lifted up the intermediate wing spars, and after much wrestling, we were able to get the entire unit onto the deck of the tugboat and save that. So that was a big step for us, was to save the intermediate wing. Beautiful shot from the drone overhead the River Thames. This reason that we do all this is for these young men, and this is the actual crew of Halifax HR 871, and this was taken right beside their Halifax. This is the Halifax that's underwater off the coast of Sweden. The Phillips crew, Alwyn Phillips on the far left, he was the skipper. All the other guys bailed out. He pointed the Halifax bomber out towards the Baltic and bailed out, and was able to save the entire crew. And they went on to lead a full and good life, unlike their comrades with over 50% casualties. And so Peter Norman made a beautiful short video dedicated to these guys, the Halifax, the bomber boys, the salvage team, all of the Swedish, Danish, and Canadian people that made this possible. So watch this, folks. It's a beautiful tribute to saving the Halifax.
Big thanks to all the guys who's working on this project, from Canada to Sweden and Denmark. All the guys is participating, is giving the whole arm for it. So we are doing a lot of teamwork. We are connecting people in all the places, in all the countries, gathered in one project.
Så vad ska vi göra tycker ni? Ska vi såga vidare eller ska vi gräva? Vi har ju mindre luft än ni har. Ja. Men det är väl bara att köra på i sig, det får väl ni.
Ja, men det är väl. It means a lot. We get new friends, having good laughs, good dives, making an historical, interesting project together. It's a big thing that we're doing together and very cool.
Ja, det är bra.
Remarkably, it turned into a violent lightning and thunder weather. Thoughtful that this was one of the reasons why the Canadian bomber crashed in the Baltic Sea outside Trelleborg, and we're at this place 78 years later and diving for wreckage.
Hello, I'm a Danish guy named Lasse, come from Copenhagen, Denmark. I'm a part of this expedition, picking up an Halifax bomber from the Baltic Sea, and a part of an expedition that's Canadian and Danish-English expedition, and Swedish. When I'm laying down on the bottom, think about the history, about this 78 years ago, this plane crashed down. It's a lot of history. I'm thinking about this plane just came down and all the parts we take up is like so much history in this. If it could talk, it'd be amazing. It's like a history lesson when you're down there, without speaking, just watching. So, very special.
The main spar. Okay.
The bottom.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you have it upside down now, or you have the bottom.
I'm taking the bottom. I'm telling you, the teamwork here is great. But I want to hand it to these guys here on River Thames. We got the skipper, we've got the lead diver, Gustav and Jan, and they are doing a bang-up job for us. We're doing this for our veterans. We're doing this for all of you folks in Canada who had guys in Bomber Command. and we're not giving up. And even if it's rough weather, we're going to be out there. And there you have it, folks, a beautiful tribute by Peter Norman of Denmark, our videographer. And he's working with James Blondeau in Canada. And so as we get ready to finish our story here, this chapter, I need to copycat Winston Churchill, and I need to talk to you about support. And Winston Churchill said, "Give us the tools and we will finish the job." And so I'm copying him today. So just to give you, for instance, the River Thames needs diesel fuel, and that's not exactly cheap in Denmark and Sweden. So $650 a day for the River Thames. We've got to feed the divers, and we don't always feed them pizza, but I just want to give you an idea of a small personal pizza is $25. And yes, draft beer in Sweden is $11 a glass. Jackie, our water pump, needs fuel. Hippie, our high pressure pump, it needs fuel. It's not a hop, skip, and a jump to Trelleborg, Sweden. It's 4,500 miles from Nanton, so you know what airfares are like. And over the 14 days, we spent $39,000 Canadian on all of our expenses. Remember, Knox Tech at home is rebuilding the sections of Halifax we bring to them, but that's a minimum of $1,900 a month. And I'm doing these trips over to the UK, Netherlands, and Sweden to crate Halifax parts to bring to Ottawa and, yes, Nanton. And the latest cargo costs are going to be about $11,000. And so this is a beautiful idea, a beautiful project. It's got a champagne idea behind it. It's got a beer budget. But everything I've told you here is those are the costs that we're having to deal with. So if you really feel strongly that you want to support us, if you want to get involved, then I'd like to show you here three direct ways that you can support the Halifax project as we move into the year 2022. You can donate to Halifax 57 Rescue directly, as we are a legal charity. And if you want to look at all we've done and all we're going to do and donate, just do a Google search and do this search called Fundraiser 417498. If you're coming to the Bomber Command Museum and you want to support the Halifax project, you can donate there to the front desk, and you will, if you will just specify the Halifax project on your donation to the museum, it will get to the Halifax project and our Halifax 57 Rescue account. And for some of you heavy rollers that are really into the stocks, bonds, and securities, Halifax 57 Rescue has an RBC brokerage account. You can see the account number there in the red numbers. And all of these I've just mentioned, you get a full tax receipt. But for those of you that have got some dusty stocks, bonds, or securities that you want to donate to the Halifax project, remember, you get the tax receipt and you don't have to pay any capital gains tax on the sale of the stocks, bonds, or security. And also, there's my contact information as project manager. which I will bring up at the very end of our show. And so all of this that we're doing is for these guys here. It's this airplane, it's these guys. And as you can see, all these veterans here on the dedication of our first Halifax recovery, and that's year 2005. Most of them have gone to their reward now, but we hold them in high esteem because we have our freedom because of them. And so I just wanted to show this as a sort of final sign-off, and we hope that you will support us because we've got a lot of miles to go and a lot of digging to do on our good old Halifax. And I would like to give credit to the Nanton Community Broadcasting Association, David Gale and his team in Nanton. Folks, Nanton's got talent. And this broadcast, this story, this adventure is being brought to you by David Gale and his team. And we just wanted to give a special tribute to them for providing this program so you could see what COVID wouldn't allow you to see. So I'll just come back now to this final slide, and if you really can help us, we'd sure appreciate it. And saving history, making history, saving Halifax's one of the greatest airplanes in Canadian aviation history. Thank you for tuning in, and contact me, any questions, any comments, and let's just keep going, and we'll do our best, and we leave no Halifax behind. Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's Karl, and we're back at the studio here, Nanton Broadcasting Association, and yours truly, David Gale, is backing me up there, Mr. High Tech in the background, and we're here to have questions, comments, fielding anything that you might want to know, and we've got quite a few comments so far, and I'm going to run down the list with everybody, and I'll try to get your name straight. And I saw some of our stalwart team are watching also over in Sweden and Denmark. And but I'll just tell you, as we approach November 11th, you know that we're going to do our best to honor our veterans. And what I have today is, like at the ends of the movies, you don't leave the theater because there are outtakes, kind of interesting clips thrown in after the movie is over. Well, I got some for you. Now, let me explain something. I have a buddy, I have a hero, I have a friend who lives in Calgary, and he's was a rear gunner on a Halifax in the Royal Canadian Air Force, and I go and see him when I can, and that's Henry Hank Jackson, Distinguished Flying Cross, 32 mission combat veteran, and folks, he's only 100 years and 9 months old this week. So I'm going to show you some clips of me visiting with Hank Jackson, and we'll throw those in with the comments. I think we'll start with some of our viewers, and the first guy to send us off a message is Richard Abbenbrook. I hope I got that right. And Richard, thanks very much for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed this wonderful underwater adventure. And remember, we're going back in late June, early July for 2 more weeks in the year 2022. So we wanted to get this message out to you. But thank you, Richard, for those kind words. And we've got an amen there. And bless you, too. Okay, yeah, Vince Ellis. Okay, you disguised your name. I couldn't see that initially, but yeah, thanks for being a stalwart, Vince. You've been with us for quite a long time, and you keep sending in wonderful gifts, donations to us, and so thank you for that. And we do appreciate your continued support. And I've got another comment here. This is a great option for doing a live presentation. Video and sound are nice and clear. And okay, yeah, Keith. Okay, Keith Manning, attaboy. And yeah, David and I busted our buns here in the studio to get this out. And we don't care if there's a world epidemic. Halifax is, you can always fight a war, but you can't forget the sword of freedom that your fighting men flew in, and so that's why we're doing it. So let's I think we'll start off with we'll go down. We've got a bunch more comments. I appreciate you guys listening in, and we'll first start off with Hank Jackson. And he did 32 trips as a rear gunner with 428 Ghost Squadron. And he was flying in combat with the Murphy crew, and they were with 428 Squadron, and they were one of the very first crews to finish a combat tour. They lost 50 or 60 bomber crews before one crew finished a combat tour, and Hank was on that, and he was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross. So he's been a big fan of ours, and he flew almost all his combat on the Halifax. And but when we first met, he wanted to know why we called ourselves Halifax 57 Rescue. And this is the interchange between Hank and I. The reason we call ourselves Halifax 57 Rescue is every part on a Halifax, even if it has a 10-digit part number stamped into it, the first 2 digits are 57.
Oh,
So you see, that's how
I didn't know that.
Right. So off the production line, every Halifax part starts with the first 2
57.
digits,
Well, that's
57.
pretty-
So that's where we have
Yeah.
our root name comes from. So there you go. Henry and I are cruising around looking at all Halifax goodies at Bomber Command Museum, and I've been phoning him from Sweden and saying, okay, Hank, we found this today and we found that today, and he's tickled pink when he gets these phone calls from overseas. And so I just thought I'll go on to a couple more comments, and Jan Christensen, how you doing, Donski Svensky boy? And Jan's married to a beautiful Swedish woman, but Swedish. He was born in Denmark, but he lives in Sweden now. But Jan is our chief diver, and Jan, we tried to do you guys credit and make sure that they know that it's the Swedish and Danish muscle behind this that's saving our Halifax, and so we just appreciate your passion and dedication. And remember, Jan, watch out for eels. That's a standing joke between Jan and I, because Jan hates eels. Okay, Jan, we're doing our best, and I'll be in contact with you soon. And we've got some more nuts and bolts to work out before we go out next June. And so just appreciate you being on. And it's a lucky day when the Canadians found the Swedish Coast and Sea Center, and they found the Halifax. So let's keep rolling, okay, buddy? Appreciate it.
Keith Manning.
Okay, and did we get Keith Manning already?
Yeah, it said greetings from Newfoundland.
Okay. Keith Manning is the Newfoundland?
Yeah, he said greetings from Newfoundland.
Okay. Lord Jesus, old man, Rory, get your dory. And how you doing down there, Keith? And I appreciate your determination to stick with us. And so we'll just keep rolling, and I'll keep sending you out more reports as we get more stuff. And let's go down to somebody found, I guess it was our site.
Christian Nosegard.
Okay, yeah, Christian. Okay, good, from Denmark. And yes, you found all the goodies. Well, not all of them, but we sure appreciated having your professional diving skills. And Christian took some time off from work with the Royal Danish Navy to come over and dive with us on the Halifax. And you remember you saw the main spar structure and a diver cutting there. Well, Christian left a bit of his perspiration on the bottom of the Baltic Sea there because he spent some goodly hours cutting the intermediate wing section that came up on the tugboat deck. That was in the main or part of Christian's efforts. So thanks, Christian, for coming on. And I've got your, remember the beautiful Three Nations team crest that you designed? I've got the final design, and we're going to be silk screening it on T-shirts for the teams, and I'll have the new model of the T-shirt soon for you guys to look at and see if you like it that way. And but Christian came up with the Three Nations team crest, and we're going to use it next summer, Christian. So good to hear from you. And let's before we go any further, let's work our way through with Hank Jackson. And folks, he's your standard Canadian. He's been to hell and back. He went to Berlin 3 times, the most heavily defended target in all of Nazi Europe. He went there 3 times and survived and came out the other side. And he when we interviewed him, we got some eyewitness accounts of what the hell it was like to fly in on a bombing run with all the Nazi world trying to shoot you down. So let's see what his answer is to what was it like going into the target as you came in your Halifax.
When we were in first there, I only saw one crew that ever finished. And going in to these, going in the bomb run, we had to watch for the fighters wouldn't go in over the target. You were all over the target. It was flak and searchlights. That was a problem there, and it was heavy. You'd think it was impossible to get through those black clouds in front of you, and the noise would rattle off the plane like hail, and you'd think the thing was full of holes, and sometimes there was no holes. But the fighters would try to get you going in and coming out. That's what you had to watch. But over the target, they didn't go in because they'd be shot down there same as you. Over the target, a lot of times it was late daylight, depending on the weather. So you'd see aircraft going all on around you, and you I just kind of didn't concentrate on that. I just concentrated on trying to see if there's anything out there. So.
And, you know, listening to Hank talk, he's just so humble. And I had befriended him years ago, and it was 6 months before I found out that all 7 of his crew, when they finished their 32 combat missions, received the Distinguished Flying Cross. Usually it's one, the pilot usually gets a DFC for excellence in combat, and because they were one of the first crews ever to finish their tour, they gave the Distinguished Flying Cross to all 7, and that's highly unusual. And so I'm just in awe of him, and he's such a great guy. And after the war, he was one of Calgary's finest. He was a Calgary police officer, and he said one of the most fun things he did in his 30 years of being a police officer in Calgary was he was on motorcycle patrol with his big old Harley police bike for 5 years, and he really liked doing that. So we'll have a few more clips of Hank Jackson, because we're coming up to Remembrance Day, and I want you to hear it from the horse's mouth, not from some newspaper article. And, you know, Hank's coming up 101, and what we're going to do is we're going to get him a Calgary Flames hockey jersey with the number 1 on the back, because when he turns 101, we ran out of numbers, okay? So he gets a jersey with number 1, and he's number 1 in my books anyways. But
This next comment is from Dave Homewood.
okay, well, I just want to mention Doug Bowman here. Doug Bowman has made 2 comments, and Doug is our webmaster for the museum. And Doug, thanks for all your help and for making the website as good as it is. And you can see the potential here of working with the Nanton Broadcasting Association, as we can really do a bang-up job as we move forward on publicizing our tribute to the Bomber Boys. So thanks, Doug. And what's the next one there, David?
Next one is from Dave Homewood.
Okay, Dave Homewood. Okay, Dave, I'm going to speak New Zealand to Dave for a second here. Hey, Dave, see, I got me hat. Okay? So, yeah, it's like New Zealand's like Australia, except it's got a bunch more hills and more ocean around it. Anyways, so Dave, yeah, good to hear from you, and we're going to save this Halifax, and I know there was a lot of Kiwi boys, and yes, we have to talk about those other guys, the Aussies, but a lot of young lads sacrificed in Bomber Command from all over the Commonwealth, and appreciate your history saving, and it's all in honor of things with wings and the lads that flew them. So thanks, Dave. And do we have another one there, David?
We do, and actually I'm going to bring this one up because this is Christian, who was commenting earlier. He wanted to just mention he's going to see you in 33 weeks.
That's right, Christian. And just remember, all work and no play makes Christian a dull boy. So you got to come out and play with us on the tugboat again, okay? And yes, I will take you for beer at some point, okay? But first you have to cut another main spar for us so we can get more parts. But yeah, good to hear from you, Christian, and looking forward to having you on the team next summer as we go out on the Halifax again.
Let's also say hi to George and Irene Nixon. They're watching from Edmonton.
Okay, yes, and George and Irene Nixon watching in Edmonton. George, I don't know, did you have a family member on Halifax's or not? Maybe RCAF. I'm trying to, well, we got about 700 diehards on our Halifax 57 Rescue membership list, and I don't remember all of them. I have to think real hard sometimes, but we appreciate you looking in on our show, and we hope you enjoyed it.
Okay, we got Doug Bowman who responded to your last comment, which
Yeah, okay, Doug, and you keep busting your buns on your end, and I'll keep going and finding more junk, and then we can turn it into treasure, and then everybody will know that we're sincere about paying tribute to our bomber boys. Thanks, man.
we've got some really cool stories that have been submitted here. I'm going to show them after curve, but I think we should show another video.
Sure. Okay. And yeah, we should go on to Hank Jackson, and you're getting it straight from the man. And you know what? Hank Jackson was finished his combat tour before D-Day. Can you imagine? And 32 trips in combat. And what Hank's next comments was from the question I asked is, what was the main defensive maneuver by your Halifax bomber against a night fighter, a Nazi night fighter, attacking and trying to shoot you down? And here's Hank's comments.
Well, the speeds were around 200. Weren't even that fast. And the fighters, of course, a lot faster than we were. So if you were able to see one coming in, it was all talked over before the pilot knew what was going on. We'd just tell him, if there's something coming, we'll say we're coming in the starboard side or port side. And we'd see something coming in. A lot of times you'd see something you didn't know what you'd say. Appears to be some unknown aircraft coming in the left side, prepare to corkscrew port, and that meant for him to throw everything down to the left side. You drop straight down, and then at the bottom he pulled up into kind of a roll and come back up again. The idea was that this fighter would overshoot you, and that was a hope. And by the time he got circled, he'd circle around again. We were gone or in the cloud or somewhere else. That was the idea of it, just for him to overshoot. And it was the same, the starboard, the same. And it was just a maneuver that we'd practice and training. And it was a lot of work for the pilot, because he wasn't a big guy, and he'd be puffing. Yeah. Big aircraft to pull back up again.
I'll just say Richard.
Yep.
And okay, so Hank's filling us in on that, and that's called the corkscrew maneuver, and it saved many bombers from getting shot down, and it was a really important maneuver that they had to practice. The next comment here from Richard, and he's saying, are you folks planning on making this Halifax flyable or a good static historic aircraft at the Bomber Command Museum of Canada? And Richard, just to answer you, do I look like a millionaire? No. Okay, I'm being smart alecky. I do that good. You must understand that to make it fly, you must have a government license to make it fly. And that means taking every nut, bolt, and rivet and wire, everything out of a bomber, building it brand new and putting it back together, and we couldn't afford that. But there is a happy medium, and you know all about it at East Kirkby, and even here at Nanton, is we make them run. So for the Halifax, I've been collecting engines from all over the world. We've got 7 Bristol Hercules engines. We've got 3 of those 7. 3 of those engines are running engines. And what I'm doing is we're assembling the 4th engine to make the final engine for a Halifax with Bristol Hercules engines, the most powerful, most maneuverable Halifax. We're shooting for to make it running and taxiable, just like our Lancaster here at the Bomber Command Museum. So it's kind of a halfway house of, it's not your glorious flying example, but believe me, when you stand next to those 4 Bristol Hercules engines, you are going to see it, hear it, smell it, and appreciate it. So that's what we're shooting for in the years to come. So appreciate your question on that.
Okay, we've got a comment here from Chris.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And what I'm trying to do is pay tribute to our bomber boys. And I want to tell you this, folks. Okay, let's talk. Remembrance Day is Remembrance Day, and we must celebrate that always. But I want to tell you this. The Canadian squadrons flying 70% combat in the Halifax, ended up at the end of the war the number one bombing group in all of Bomber Command. They had the lowest loss rates in combat and the highest serviceability rates in all of Bomber Command. And that is flying 70% of the time with the Halifax. So don't tell me that the Halifax has to be second to another airplane. But appreciate that, Chris, and let's keep our team going, and appreciate you being on with us. And we'll save some more history and tell the folks all about the Halifax.
Okay, let's go to another video here.
Sure. And so Hank Jackson will show another answer, and this is really interesting. Hank Jackson went to hell and back 3 times. That means he flew to Berlin, the big city, 3 times and came out the other side. It was the most heavily defended target in all of Nazi Europe. So I asked Hank, what was it like to fly to target Berlin 3 times in 1943?
When we went to briefing and saw the red lines up to Berlin, you know, oh boy, this is something. But as we said, we never thought about it wasn't going to be us. We didn't have to worry. But going in there, I'm sitting in the back. I didn't see what we're going into. I'd seen where we'd been, and that was enough. There was a lot of planes going down you could see, and you didn't know sometimes whether they were actually a plane or what. But these had all kinds of anti-aircraft besides the big black spots. There was things like onion balls coming at you, just keep coming and following you along. You'd think if they ever caught up to you, that'd be it. But they just seemed to follow you. And all kinds of, it was just like a big fireworks program. And then all the, down below, it just all flames and a hell of a mess. So, but as I said, I saw where we'd been. I didn't see it going in. It might have been a different thing. But we always had that feeling we're all right.
I think he's doing the tomato in background.
Yes, so, I mean, I'm sitting there just in awe of, this is my guy. He's now 100 years and 9 months old, and he's still telling me about the stuff that he saw. And, well, actually, I shouldn't say that, because Hank had a girlfriend in Derby, England. And when he had time off from his combat, he'd go see his girlfriend. But I asked him about his girlfriend when I was interviewing him, and Hank just looked at me and squinted his eyes, and he says, I don't have to tell you everything. So, but a great guy. And now, I would like to, I see a comment here about aluminium versus aluminum. And is that George Nixon, David?
I think it is, yeah.
Okay, George.
Yeah.
Look, pay attention here. Sometimes if I think they're Canadian or American, I will say aluminum. But if I'm talking to a Brit, I don't want them to get distracted from the proper pronunciation. So I will use aluminium. So, okay, I'll say it out loud so you've got it. Some swords of freedom are made from aluminium. Okay? Yeah, that's good. Okay, I think that's George's question, so I've answered it, and yes, I can speak 2 languages, George. Okay?
And then we got Mike here who made a nice comment.
Okay, Mike, yeah, thanks. And when I discovered how important the Halifax was, I just said I got to go out and form a team and get a bunch of nutcases like me that believe in our fighting men and want to give credit where credit's due. And so we're doing the best we can. And we sure hope you folks out there will support us, and we'll keep rolling. I got my Svenski team, I got my Danski team, I got my Canuck team, and yes, we might even take some Brits too. Well, actually, we do have Brits. We got Ian Hinks. So, but I'm just saying, it's a real international team. And I think we got to get ready to sign off here.
Hold on. We got a follow-up. Mike just made a comment here. I want you to read this out.
Okay.
So this is also from Mike.
Okay, so Mike is saying his dad flew on Halifax's. He was RCAF, but assigned to 77 Squadron Royal Air Force. And you got him up into the office of the Halifax in the Trenton Museum. And that, as Mike says, I will never forget that. Well, okay, Mike, and you won't see my name anywhere mentioned at the Trenton Museum because of politics. But I spent 2 years of my life organizing that recovery of the Halifax for Trenton, and that was a world's record lift. And so we're just going to find as many Halifaxes as we can in the years to come, and as long as the good Lord lets me put one foot in front of the other, we'll keep doing this. So I think we can. I'll see if there's any more comments, but let's just have one more comment from Hank Jackson. And I asked him straight out, "What does the Halifax mean to you?" What does the Halifax mean to you?
Well, it was my lifesaver, you know. It was built like it reminded me of the old streetcar. It was built like that, big and strong, and took an awful beating. And it was hard to knock them down, as you know.
As Pee-wee?
Okay, and David, we've got a very important person putting a message up to us. So can you put that up on the screen there just for me to sort through? And now this, oh, cool. This is so cool. Yeah, Sue. Sue is the daughter of John Alwyn Phillips, DFM, and, Sue, he also had the DFC, so 2 awards. And Pee Wee Phillips was the pilot of HR 871, the same aircraft that we're recovering. And so we're just so thrilled to have you come on board and be with us. And I understand what a great headmaster and teacher your father was after the war, after all of his combat. And so he's gone to his reward now, but you know how many hundreds of people appreciated and loved him after the war for his teaching school kids and giving them the basics of life. So thank you so much for coming on. And yes, we will do our best to honor your father's participation in 405 Squadron. And now I have apologized for your father to the Swedish press, okay, Sue? What happened was when he bailed out, remember when he bailed out? He's the last guy out of the bomber, and it's pitch dark out, and he comes down in his parachute, and he lands with both feet on the neck of a cow, a Swedish cow, and he killed it stone dead. And the farmer and some of the press, they were upset that Alwyn Pee Wee Phillips had killed their cow. So when they were interviewing us on Swedish television for the recovery of the Halifax, I did my best to represent your family, and I apologized to the Swedish cow being killed by your father. So all is good now. Everybody likes us again. So don't worry about it. Anyways, okay, David tells me, he says, don't elaborate some of the time. Okay, so I'm not. But Sue, this is a great privilege to make contact with you, and please get a hold of me. And as we recover some of the Halifax, I'm going to bring you a piece of your father's Halifax, okay? So let's correspond, and if there's something that we can give you as a memento from the Halifax in the coming weeks and months, we'll give it to you, and you can keep it as family treasure, okay? So thanks very much for coming on. And I think David, do we have any more comments here?
I just want to put this up. Sharon said fantastic work, Karl. So this is Sharon Alberts. So just want to thank her, and then we can finish off.
Sure, okay, and Sharon says, fantastic work, Karl, and okay, Sharon, one man is not an island, and I've got these beautiful Swedes, Danes, and my Canadian team, and now we're including David Gale in on this because you can see how good this program is, and we're going to make more programs, and by next summer, we'll have it down pat, and you guys can't fall asleep because it will be exciting. So I guess we'll sign off here, and there is how you can help us keep rolling on the Halifax. And I'll lay a landmine into the mix of this thing. You folks, you know that Halifax 57 Rescue has 3 more Halifaxes in Europe underwater that we can do after HR 871. So thanks so much, everybody, for listening in, for watching, and just remember, every day is Remembrance Day at Halifax 57 Rescue and Bomber Command Museum of Canada, and I've got them convinced now. They believe in it too. We leave no Halifax behind. Thanks a lot, everybody.